This is Bob McGee. I am in my Father's house, and I am sure that I am where I should be. And I am making this video on the first day of October 2019. I am reading from chapter 13 in Mark. Mark chapter 13. Jesus is speaking too. He's on the Mount of Olives, opposite the temple that is not there today. So don't go looking for the temple. You may go sit on what was the Mount of Olives, but you won't sit and look at the temple. Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives with these disciples. I will read you their names once more. He was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple. Peter and James and John and Andrew were questioning him privately. So Jesus has 4 disciples with him. They're privately talking here. I'm reading from Mark. I just read it. Now, who was there? Peter, James, and John, and Andrew were questioning him privately. Jesus is speaking to them. This is not, one day to the next. This is Jesus speaking to them one day. This is happening one day. It's not happening over a number of days. Jesus is explaining to them what's going to happen and that they should be able to see it. Jesus says to them, "You will be hated by all because of my name. But the one who endures to the end, he will be saved." Now, I did not say that you and me or you and I should not endure to the end. But Jesus did not say these things to me and you. Okay? He said it to them. It can refer to me and you, but me and you cannot see these things that he said they would see because they saw it, and you and I won't. Do you understand these things? Jesus says that those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains. I am not in Judea. I'm not going to Judea. I'm not going to have to flee to the mountains because these things have already taken place. Jerusalem has been in ruins. It was put to ruins years ago. And the temple that Jesus was looking at with his disciples, everything that he said about the temple has already taken place. And Jesus says the one who is on the housetop must not go down or go in to get anything out of his house. In other words, they got to go. If they want to live, they got to run. They're going to have to make a move. The one who is on the housetop, the one who is in the field, must not turn back to get his coat. When these things take place, it's time to run. Woe to those who are pregnant and to those who were nursing babies in those days. But pray that it may not happen in the winter. I hope and I figure they prayed that it would not happen in the winter. I would think they might have taken Jesus' advice. For those days there will be a tribulation such as has not occurred since the beginning of the creation which God created until now and never will be. So don't be looking for something to happen again that has already happened. You know why? Because it's not going to happen again. It's only going to happen once. And Jesus is explaining to them. Jesus says, for the days will be for those days will be tribulation, such as has not occurred since the beginning of the creation, which God created until now and never will, unless the Lord had shortened days, no life would have been saved. But for the sake of the elect, whom he chose, he shortened the days. And then if anyone says to you, behold, here is the Christ, or behold, he is there, do not believe him. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and will show signs and wonders in order to lead astray, if possible, the elect. But take heed, behold, I have told you everything in advance. Now, if you want to apply this and you think you can apply this to you, do it. That's fine with me. I'm not going to tell you don't do it. I'm just telling you that these disciples saw these things come to pass. And he says, false Christs and false prophets will arise. So according to Jesus himself, there are more Christs than himself. That's according to Jesus. Jesus says, what I'm just reading, but take heed, I have told you in advance. Jesus says, in those days, after that tribulation, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers that are in the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. Now this here has not happened yet. They have not seen this happen yet. And those disciples that Jesus was talking to is not going to see this, but it's going to happen. And the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. And he will send forth the angels and will gather together his elect from the four winds, from the farthest end of the earth to the farthest end of heaven. Now learn the parable from the fig tree. Do you know the parable of the fig tree? The parable from the fig tree, when its branch has already become tender and put forth its leaf, you know that summer is near. Even so, you too, when you see these things happening, recognize that he is near, right at the door. Truly I say to you, this nation, this generation, this race, get it right. Don't let nobody mess you up. This race, there was a race of people that Jesus is speaking to. And he says that these things, they will see this. But he says, this generation or this race will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Do you understand?